those who know your name. But little old me, I can't get it up or down on the page. The pen is mightier than the sword, and we can wax phallic poetic all night long, but I don't want to fight you. Let us both enjoy the moment, so please don't say a word. Your talk about its size gives you away. Thanks. Um, so, and Jim can attest to this. When I was reading at Webster's a while there, a couple, I mean, probably the better part of a year, we all had become friends, and some friends from, I think it was a Thursday night poetry gig or Wednesday night, I can't remember which, um, came to this set that I opened for a musician with these silly poems. But this is somebody came in late, and this is what happened, and this is why. This is called Pedantic. During the break, you saunter in, second set speakeasy. Don't nobody look at me. Fishnets, garters, high heels, weaving, wobbling. Was it the wine? In and out about the crowd, showing them your box, your wares. Cigarettes, candy, poetry, coffee, tea, me. Out on display, you long to play, paw, a flapper, flipping, fumbling through these pages. You've bought both, brought me home, taken me in ways you could only imagine. Yet you're still pining, smacking of sap. The only way to get over someone, that hump to hump, is to get under somebody else. Their spell, a tryst with the twist, magic fingers massaging your mind, cleanse the brain pan palette, playing with words, playing with you, form, structure, experimentation with the craft. And after all that rambunctiousness, curling in your toes as you lie there, languishing, lingering, a longing in your limbs, the joke of a smoke lolling on your tongue, the poem's over, you're awake, and now you need a cold shower. Thanks. So that's a bit of a fun one too. I like that one a lot. It's very sad, James, that I don't get to see you pop in. Oh, there you are.
I told you I'd be here.
Man, so good to see you again.
It's good to see you. By the way, I don't know if you can tell, but I do have a beard. I've been trying to grow a beard out for this event just because I knew you would have your beard.
Oh, I'm so and that makes all four of us. I don't know how you're going to do like tomorrow or later on with these, but Jim and James and Dave and you and we all have beards.
We all have the beards, and I've never grown a beard before, mainly because you can't see the camera's too far away. But I have some
Mm-hmm.
patches that I'm trying to fill in, and but this gives me a perfect amount of time to just I'm
Nice.
not seeing anybody in person, so I can take the time to actually grow it in. That's the plan. That's the plan. So I feel like there was a lot of sexual undertones in some of those, um, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. So I just wanted to mention that
Thanks.
for you as we're here, as you
Yeah.
can see, with the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest. So we are
Right.
streaming, by the way, for those of you. If you're not sure, if you didn't know, we are streaming as well to the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest YouTube page. I brought it on right after you started because I forgot to press the button, but I pressed the button. So now we are both on the State College Live Facebook page and the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest. So we are here with some wonderful poets from the area. Going up right now, we have Jared Conti, and this is my second time listening to him do poetry, and it's as lovely as the first. So,
Thanks.
what are some of the other themes that we're going to hear from the few things that you're going to be speaking over the next? You still have another
Um,
10 minutes or so.
I'm going to go in two different directions. I'm going to read two more serious poems. One actually is for Jim Colbert that I had written for he and his friend Kim years ago. And I apologize for not getting it, Jim, on the last time. But I thought today would be a good time to do that. I meant to write a poem about Dave Bonta because he used to be in that uh, poetry group at Webster's as well. And I always liked his work, but I never got around to writing a poem for Dave.
Nice. And by the way,
And I feel
Lisa says hello.
Lisa, hello. It's nice to see
Lisa,
you. I
yes.
hope the girls aren't listening.
And if anybody wants to in the chat, feel free to talk to the poets. If you have any questions for them, we can bring it up and we can have a conversation along with these wonderful poems. So I'm going to get out of here, Jared, and let you get through those few serious poems. Wait, when's the one for Jim? Should I bring Jim on screen for when you're reading it? You can read it directly to him.
Yeah, if you want to bring Jim on, yeah, that would be swell.
Is that going to be this one? All right, that's what I'll do.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna.
can do that for you.
Oh, then what I'll do is I'll do this.
Oh man.
Oh, and then I'm going to actually remove myself so you're not going to be able to hear me. And you can just speak directly to Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jared.
It's nice to see you again.
I appreciate you doing this because I tried incorporating the poem that I wrote for Kim and tried reading through it at least 5 times today, and I just keep crying every time I start it. So,
That's one of these things that I love about. Everything's so sad nowadays. And I haven't seen you in forever and a day, and I haven't seen a lot of people, and it just makes it. Yeah. Well, here's this. This is serendipitous for Kim, by way of Jim. The sky opens up, light show letting us know that in addition to searing heat and unseasonably cold weather, there will also be drum beats thundering, rain accompanying, whose entrance is a cascading curtain to our island cave, hidden from the outside world. From the outside world. Farmhouse spouting, in need of a farmhand handyman. They've done such a nice job with the porch swing. Here, with no place to go or data to upload to Facebook, our private island carries the faint tang of body odor, stale beer, and citronella tiki torches, lighting the way home. Hold on, Jimmy boy. Hold on.
thank you, Jared. That poem means a lot to me. So, thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you. You're great.
All right, we threw Jim backstage again. We threw Jim backstage.
You got one of those hooks, like from the Muppet Show?
Yes, exactly. But I want to make sure that you get the full thing. So we're going back to you. What are you drinking?
This is a Broken Heels hazy IPA.
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock on a Friday. I like it.
Well, my in-laws took the kids swimming, so I have kind of this. Thanks, Madge.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Thanks. So I keep talking about this band that I'm in, but Anthony and I have actually written 2 songs that incorporate that poem into their music. So that's a lot of fun with that too.
Nice. Awesome. I'm going to let you do your other serious one and then a few other ones as you wrap up. And I have a surprise at the end for you.
Oh man. Hey, speaking of surprises, you guys, the Venmo thing, I've been paid for poetry before. People buy the books, but it was really cool to have a tip jar and support. That was neat. And then you got all 3 volumes.
I did. And that was actually my surprise, is I was going to go get the 3 volumes and show them on screen, but you just ruined the surprise.
I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
Okay, pretend you didn't hear it. Go ahead and read your next poem. I'll get out of here.
All right. So I'm doing another virtual sale thing for the Renova Heritage Park Heritage Days. And I grew up a bit in Renova. My grandparents lived there. My parents had lived there growing up. And we went up on weekends and maybe spent a better summers there. But this is about my grandmother. She passed away a while back, but this kind of happened then. And this poem actually rounds out the Emperor's New Poems, new poems used, poems slightly abused, which you can get on my Bandcamp page if you'd like. And this is called Sundowny. The golden, seething summer sun settles in the west. Beams like bristles a pointy sundown crown. I don't know who you are, but I've been waiting as you walk away from the forest, animals following behind you, frolic as you call to them with your magical whistle. Seated beside you, holding your hand, holding back, holding on. You are here, but I am waiting for someone else for this to be over. Yeah, so that's my gram. She was pretty great. Yeah. We're done with the seriousness, which is okay. And since this is the theater and dance fest, I figured I would bring in some of the some selections of some stuff that I'm working on for my big epic poetry ballad. And it's called The Last 4th of July. And I don't normally get political and stuff, but the last couple days, the politics with the world have just gotten into everything that I'm writing. So this is a little bit from the beginning of that. And it rhymes, and I'm not good at that. So that's why it's taken so long to write. They had business to attend to before the weekend got its start, passing cannon pointing toward the bridge, stationed at Memorial Park. It was decommissioned, had been for quite a while, even long before things got messy, guns and explosion out of style. The living, now more civilized, kill someone by looking them in the eye. No longer enough to point and shoot, now you really had to try. Was what this weekend was about those who sacrificed so long ago, folks from every walk of life, men, women, children, friend, and foe. I'm okay with you having your guns, but this post-apocalyptic tale is a little bit about there's this new thing coming out called hope punk. It's kind of like steampunk, but it's a lot more hopey than normal, and I'll totally take that. But this is a bit about race here, which is something I've never ever written about, and I'm kind of glad that I'm getting the chance to. And I think this will be my last of two. Whoops, he blurted, casual like, smashing the ornament sitting there. The black boy had been an antique, for which Barry never cared. Wasn't his pappy's, but his before him, back when such things were still in vogue. An awful history to have. An awful history it had, and made him feel a toad. Racism weren't much a thing no more, a few small pockets of it left, but quite a burden some still carried, undaunted by its heft. So that was Memorial Day weekend, and it's interesting that just passed. And it's almost 4th of July. So this is probably my last poem in Last 4th of July, which is the first bit of this epic ballad. This is called The Last 4th of July, from the Traveling Tales of Way Back When. 1. Like moths drawn cross, garish, and pink, obscene atop the church, atop the hill. 2. They fluttered in anticipation of the celebration. No Easter story here, wrong season to believe in, but a triumphant entry just the same, the glory seated upon the donkey's back. They weren't seeking, though some were saved, the larger truths illumined in the dark night of the soul. Not known a sniff of the way, but once caught wind of it, could smell it on the air. 'Neath feast and forest, sawdust as the steeple pointed the way. 3. Nose hairs wrinkle like reins as acridity beckons and gunpowder sparks their interest, heating them up as they fan the flames of past loves. Careful not to get burnt. Fireworks weren't no child's play. Yet the old fools bristled if you dared to tell them so, acting out all but their age, whooping and hollering, voices carrying on across the valley. Their follies volleyed, spoke back to them just the same. Apostles of the high flame, names like Lefty, Stumps, lingering fingers, ghost arm Nubbins, Clark, and cousin Eddie. 4. Fireworks whistled, wail their incoherencies, songs they long to hear tell. Heavens heckled, spectacles failing to reach their destination. Thanks. I'm done. Thanks. You're great.
That was wonderful. And look, I don't know if you can tell, but here they are. Everybody, everyone who's listening, these are the 3 books, and they are on Jared's website, which is right below us. You can go and you
There
can
it is.
purchase them, so then you can read them, and you can also support local poets, local artists right here in the center region. And so, any last words, Jared?
Hey, thanks for listening. This was really a highlight of quarantine. This is the 3rd week I've been in lockdown with my family, and it's nice to be able to be a part of you guys. So thanks so much,
Awesome.
and thanks so much for all you people listening. This is great.
Well, cool, awesome. Well, then I'm gonna throw you off, and then we're gonna bring up some other stuff here in a second. Jared, you can feel free to hang on if you want. If you need to get off, because I know you've got you're paying for your internet and and your 3G. You can feel free to disconnect. That's fine. I just have to make sure that I can figure out a way to turn on the other one. I think the mouse died, which is not good. But we're going to figure that out here in a second. Because we do have Dave Conta, who we're going to have. But Dave did not... Oh, actually, Jared, I'm bringing you back on. I'm bringing you back on because we had a question.
Ooh.
I'm guessing this is for you. Oh, there we
go. I mean, I don't know. I've danced by the river nude. I'm not sure there was a song written about me. I really wish that my band would cover that, or at least my brother would cover that. Either that or Peanut Butter and Jelly, because that was a good song too.
Nice. All right. Well, cool.
Thanks,
I got the mouse to work again, so we can play Dave. So thank you so much, Jared. It was lovely to listen to you again for the 2nd time here on State College Live. This time as part of the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest. Thank you so much.
So we are live.
Thanks.
And
you're great.
All right. Well, Jared said I'm great, so that must mean I'm great. Right, everybody? If Jared says it, it must be true. We now, as I change this, we're going to have Dave Bonta. Now, Dave could not be here with us, but don't worry. Everything's fine. But Dave sent us in a reading. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to pretend. So this is, here we go. I'm going to add this to the stream. So this is Dave. This is our photo that Dave sent in, and I'm going to play his 12 minutes of poetry for everybody to listen to this. So this is the point where I would ask Dave questions, and Dave would answer some questions. We'd laugh. I'd make a really good joke, and you'd be like, "Oh man, no wonder he does improv." That's what would happen right now. So you can just pretend that that's happening as this is going on, and then I'd say, "Hey Dave, go ahead and take it away," which I'm going to do right now.
So like a lot of poets this spring, I've been writing pandemic poetry, but mine have taken the form of videos for the most part. I've been making video poems for years, and recently I've gotten into a form known as haibun, which is a combination of lyrical prose and haiku. Now, modern haiku, I should clarify, is not about syllable counting. They tend to be much shorter, actually, than 17 syllables in English, for various reasons. buses up and down the street to clap and shout slogans in support of NHS healthcare workers. It's chaotic, unsyncopated, and over in less than a minute. That was really great, she says. Open road. Our distances are social. Quarantine walk. This one starts and ends with a haiku. Quarantine walk, stopping at the sound of a jet. I can't stop marveling at how quiet it's become under lockdown. In normal times, I find the close horizons of this narrow hollow in the hills a bit claustrophobic, but now that there's so much less noise echoing around in it from adjacent highways, the nearby quarry, and factories and businesses in town, it feels more spacious. A pair of local Canada geese fly over at dusk, and I hold my breath, listening to their wing beats. I no longer envy animals that live underground their superior soundproofing. Last week's rain, that hush in the moss. Putting a garden in. Putting a garden in so often entails putting wildlife out. You develop an adversarial relationship with nature. Fencing, trapping, shooting, poisoning, getting a guard dog. It's this sad reality that many years ago turned me against what had been the reigning passion of my youth. Onion bed, pulling out wild onions. But my wife suggested from her bunker in London that as long as I am stuck in Pennsylvania for at least half the summer due to the pandemic, I might as well grow some vegetables. Great idea, I said, already relishing the thought of getting my fingers in the dirt again. But just planting fence posts, I displaced 3 adorable baby bunnies from the long grass, and when our neighbor plowed the site up, a meadow vole rushed out, all fur and panic. Wire fence, the wind's new whistle. This next one's called Face Masks. Face masks, that curiously redundant name. Perhaps because it's only partial and the mask becomes part of the face, or vice versa. Last week, I forgot a mask on a trip to the supermarket in liberal college town, and the other shoppers stared and glared. Curled lips were hidden, but I could read their thoughts. He must be one of them. Essential workers behind plexiglass. Easter lilies. This week, a quick trip to a deli in blue-collar Republican town, and this time I remember my mask. Again I get stared at, and now I can see their mouths, too. The smirks. He must be one of them. It's a relief to retreat to the mountain, where the blue-headed vireos are back with their chant that means, I am here, and this is my spot. Snow on shadbush blossoms, the governor's new order. Now this next one is called Flag of Hate, and the video features me burning a Confederate flag in the driveway. The explanation in the Highboon. My brother comes back from a walk to report that someone has nailed a Confederate flag to a tree at the end of the mountain. This far north of Dixie, that's an unmistakable sign of hardcore racism. Our neighbors in the hollow have biracial grandchildren. Perhaps it was aimed at them? Who knows? Hatred is a disease that can only be cured by love, but its carriers must be isolated, and the symbols it infects destroyed. Flag of hate, hissing as it burns. Fire breaks the hydrocarbon chains in polyester with 1,000 fingers at once. We gaze at the flag's charred outline on the road as if it were a map to some disaster area, a nuclear test site, a strip mine, the tar sands of Alberta. Fake stars, learning what it means to shine. This one from April 29th is called Brachiate. I don't remember the dream that woke me, just that it seemed suddenly very important to breathe and to go on breathing, to go on despite fear, loneliness, or depression. I thought of a stone I'd found on a walk that was too charismatic to just toss aside, but which I knew I had no reason to keep since I'm in the process of moving out, or was before the pandemic hit. I put it in my pocket, and a moment later took it out again and set it down beside the trail for some child to find, with its red mineral heart outlined in yellow. I thought of Charles Simich's definition of a stone as a mirror that works poorly. Brachiate, as if my lungs too might leaf out. How to care. On the last day of April, Facebook gives us a new way to react, a care emoji. Yellow generic person hugs a disembodied heart, perhaps the heart that absence makes fonder. But to older eyes, unless you squint, it looks like someone clutching an open wound. Taking shelter under my umbrella, mosquito. Such a long, cold, rainy April we've had. The death toll continues to climb, just as the scientists foretold. Already more Americans have died from COVID-19 than in the Vietnam War, they say. A comparison which has the unfortunate side effect of making our imperial adventures seem like natural disasters. But it's always hard to turn the dead into mere statistics. Picture instead a large stadium where the entire crowd has just vanished. Or all the stumps in a 300-acre forest that's just been clear-cut. Soil too wet to plant, fresh graves. Out of whack. This is from May 13th. It's not every year we get snow in dogwood season. This particular year, the wild weather simply adds to the impression that the world is completely out of whack. Spiderweb catching snowflakes, their little spikes. Marooned in our homes, tempers fray. We wonder how long this will go on, worry about finances and food shortages. I watch a pair of scarlet tanagers, treetop birds, reduced to feeding near the ground and foraging for invertebrates in the creek. Redder than our open mouths, tanager. But spring is always a puzzle, the innumerable ways that spikiness blossoms and leaves us. Tadpole. Neologism for the title here, but you'll see as we go along what I'm getting at, I hope. I didn't go to bars or restaurants all that often, but I still miss them. Longing is all about the unattainable, isn't it? I often find myself out restlessly walking around the mountain instead. I like walking at dusk because it is then that the buzzing stops. I don't mind the whine of a mosquito, but as long as I can remember, I've been bothered by flies. Too many of them, and my nose starts to itch uncontrollably. I don't know why. And nothing is more horrifying than some dead animal heaving with maggots. Ephemeral pond. Raccoon footprints fill in with tadpoles. In the news, reopening restaurants are seating mannequins at every other table, so diners will feel less isolated. Just before waking, I dreamed that the top-hat-wearing skeletons off the Best of the Grateful Dead live album cover passed me on the street, but they're no longer dancing. They look disoriented. The skulls have somehow lost their grins. Tadpole. The social distancing of cannibals. In the fullness of time, May 28th. 6 weeks after I planted potatoes, they are finally all up, the latest leaves no bigger than the ears of the mice I was sure had dug up and eaten them, especially after a series of holes appeared in each hill. But it's been unusually cold this spring, and sprouts were simply taking their time. Our neighbors had urged patience, and they were right. All this waiting to see what happens with the pandemic would be hard to bear if I didn't also have something to wait for, a garden growing and changing day by day now, so that time doesn't merely pass like some lifeless assembly line, but unfolds, ramifies, flourishes, bears fruit. Even as I pull weeds, my beard keeps on growing. And a second haiku. Evening garden. A snake has left her skin beside the lettuce. So like a lot of poets this spring,
And everybody, that was Dave Bonta and what he sent in. So everyone give a round of applause in the chat. We did have a few things that were going on. Jared saying that the great thing about it is that he could see Dave's eyes and eyebrows doing their thing as he read, whatever their thing is. I'm sure those of you who have seen Dave know exactly what Jared is talking about. And Mary is talking about how powerful those poems were. There was a dramatic pause in there. Definitely was not my fault because I pressed mute for 30 seconds. It was just the powerful pause. That's what Jim was telling me. And speaking of Jim, how are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. And thank you so much for putting this all together, James. I know both you and Jason have just been working your butts off this weekend, hopping all around. So it's truly appreciated. We love you guys being a part of Central PA Theater and Dance Fest.
Well, it's only 4 events today and 3 tomorrow, but, we're doing okay. We're doing good. This is the second time that I've worked with you for poetry, and I'm super excited. And I've also seen you play at 3 Dots for Music. I've also heard you talk about songwriting at 3 Dots for Music, so we've worked a lot with you over the last year. And I'm super excited to hear some more stuff. So can you give us a little bit of background on what we're going to hear?
Sure. So I tried not to have too much replication from the last time I did State College Live, but there's also the balance. I want to do my greatest hits, right? Because there are people that didn't tune in, that weren't able to tune in the last time. So it's going to be a balance of poems from my book, Defiantly Blue Sky. And which, thank you, by the way, for helping me clear those out.
Oh, we did. We cleared those out because of that show. We were able to sell a few of them.
Yes, I did.
Oh, wonderful.
And also some newer work. I don't have anything as new as what Dave was reading. And just, by the way, I just love the juxtaposition of Dave and Jared's work with my own. So I know Dave was concerned about not being able to be part of this live. But I really just think his work is so beautiful that it was worth watching him not move for a good 12 minutes.
Yeah, very, very true. I'm super excited to hear it. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to kick off with one from my book, Defiantly Blue Sky. My father was a metallurgical engineer at Bethlehem Steel in Johnstown. He actually passed away in 1986, but this was one about his shoes. It's called My Father's Shoes. The cadence of my father's shoes across a wooden floor was like the rolling thunder of an approaching militia. Steel-toed metatarsals, requisite for the blue hats at Bethlehem Steel. Thick, unyielding leather with cleated soles, and flanks and toes you could play like a drumhead, or to flatten spiders. Heavy as a dumbbell, scuffed and battered, a patina somewhere between brown and black, with satellites of thin red dust from the coke plant ingrained in the steer hide if you looked real close. Replaced every few years at the Army-Navy store downtown, within days the new leather would sport scars, scuffing from the railcar ladders and that dull varnish of age. I asked once why he didn't give the old ones to Goodwill. An only child, I was neither benevolent nor benefactor of handed-down clothing, but was taught that someone could get a lot of use out of it. So we piled into the station wagon every so often and headed for the blue donation bins in Roxbury. Because when those shoes are worn out, they're worn out, he explained. And I nodded like I understood. My father's shoes. All right, so I'm gonna mix this up a little bit. I think a lot of my work falls in either kind of the category of it's family, or it's relationships, or it's Pennsylvania history. So I'm gonna mix things up between those three, and that was sort of a cross between Pennsylvania history and family, obviously. So this one's called Maybe the Words. This will be, this is a newer one. This will be in a book I'm working on right now. It's going to be tentatively called An Intimacy I Honor. Title comes from my dear friend Scott Ainsley, wonderful music historian, blues player, songwriter, etc. from New Hampshire. Maybe the words. Maybe it was only ever the words that we fell in love with. the glorious, sensual passion of words dancing on paper, growled from a poet's lips in those days before there was a coffee shop on every corner in the city. Even then I knew it, not for all the late-night conversations or those few moments spent together that still run through my head, saturated with hope for me, discarded like a napkin soaked with spilled cappuccino for you, tossed to the trash with that scholarship perfect arc. Maybe it was only ever the words that we fell in love with. It was surely never each other. Maybe the words. All right. Another newer one, and this actually dates back to the Jared. If you're still listening, I no longer have my poetry shoes. They just plain wore out. But this actually dates back to the poetry scene at Webster's a number of years back that Jared referred to earlier. This is called Informal Clothing. It arrived wearing informal clothing, but is not a casual thing. These interlocking layers of vulnerability, pain, and quiet. The indigos, the violets here speak of placidity, but have undercurrents of restlessness that murmur and whisper like an early fall wind through a wheat field. Your reflections, like old photographs cut with the edges of hope, blunt as kindergarten scissors. You trimmed them as best you could, but the edges are still ragged, the borders uneven. The moments you gave me measured out not in coffee spoons, but in tea leaves. Conversations worth having, echo like the last notes of a concert that was too loud. Deceiving my ears. They think they're still hearing music. It arrived wearing informal clothing, but it is not a casual thing. Informal clothing. And I think that was also loosely inspired by one of my songwriting heroes, David Olney, passed away this year, and David had a song called Poor Clothing. It was just beautiful. One of the few songwriters that I would consider a poet in his own right from his lyrics.
So where? I think I'm back now. Apologize if you heard Jason in the background a little bit during one of those poems. It was just adding some background to you going on. We do have some comments in the chat, and I had a question of just
Yes.
like where do you get your inspiration for a lot of your poems? Is it and when do you write? Like, do you have a set time that you write, or do you just like when it comes, it comes?
I'm a terribly undisciplined writer. That being said, I like to write pretty much late at night. And it's not necessarily because it's quiet or any of that. If anything, our family tends to stay up pretty late. But it's just that's sort of the time when the gears in my head are more or less moving. So that's kind of my productive time. And where do ideas come from? There's a wonderful quote by Andrew Wyeth that I've butchered so many times now that I'm not even sure I'm paraphrasing it, but it's basically sometimes people are so busy looking for beauty overhead that they're trampling it underfoot. And so a lot of the inspiration comes from just people I encounter in my day-to-day life, or what might be a mundane story from a newspaper, that sort of thing. So but I've always been moved by that quote ever since I first read it. So I know I've paraphrased it a bit, but that's the gist of it for sure.
Awesome. Well, Jared's excited for a new book. That's what he
So
said. And Mary really loved one of those poems.
Oh, thank you, Mary. And I was on the cusp of having it ready to go right when the pandemic hit. And what I really wanted to, I had a couple photographs in my head that I wanted to take to accompany the poems. And then the pandemic hit, and we weren't going out if we didn't need to. So the photography sort of got put on hold. So it's Jared, I'll just promise you this. It is as close as it has ever been to getting out the door. And perhaps this is the catalyst for actually pushing it on its way and saying, "Go forth and fly and become a book."
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the stage. We still have about 10 minutes. I don't know how long you want to go. If we want to try and bring Jared back, all I can see right now is his ceiling. But I'm gonna give you the stage again.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right. So this is one that I think more people have commented on than any of my poems, and this is called "My Grandmother's Sewing Box," and it's obviously under the family history category. My grandmother was this is referring to my maternal grandmother. She was about 4'11" and about as wide as she was tall, and lived with us my whole life. So, or not my whole life, my youth. Anyway, my grandmother's sewing box. Tucked away on the shelf in the bedroom closet, shiny black alligator textured vinyl peeling slightly from the cardboard underlayment. Felted lining red as a sailor's delight. The lid is floppy now, precariously perched, spine cracking from years of service, mending knees of dungarees with coarse, uneven stitches. Function over form. Bobbins and thimbles, patented needle threaders, needles and pins all showing a patina of age. My grade school fingers would unravel the spools of colored threads with more colors than my crayon box, marveling at the corals and teals, the rich salmons and turquoise tones. And I would wonder what garments my grandmother or my mother, clad in ecru or beige, the non-colors of age, the colors of strong, simple women and quiet dignity, ever owned that flaunted such flamboyant hues. My grandmother's sewing box. All right, 4:53. We've still got a few. Probably do a couple more here. This is one of my personal favorites, just not because it's a great work of art, but just the memories it brings back. And this is about an Opel GT. I don't know if there are any 70s automotive fans out there, but the Opel GT kind of looked like someone put a Corvette in the dryer too long and it shrunk. My neighbor, when I was young and impressionable, my neighbor Mark Hawk was 5 years older than me and went through a series of really cool cars. And he had a gold Opel GT for a while. This is called Opel GT, Lincoln Highway, 1979. Squatting in the overgrown grass by the side of the Lincoln Highway, for sale sign fading to pink, off-center in the window. A slight oxidation chalks the orange paint. The doors are unlocked, the interior smells of must and vinyl baked and just beginning to crack from the sun. No phone number graced the sign, no houses nearby, just a fading orange sports car. A sentinel in a field along Route 30. I would ride my Honda 4 out just to see it. 25 miles from home, the ebb and flow of hills on the highway like a roller coaster. I would park my motorcycle, then repeat the ritual. Circle the car like a vulture around a dying beast. Open the door, slide into the bucket seat, depressing the clutch pedal and running the shifters silently through the gears. Eventually, I would leave the car and ride down the highway a few miles to the old ship hotel for my consolation prize, standing on the observation deck and seeing 3 states and 7 counties. I moved to Pittsburgh, and several years would pass before I would drive by the site again on my way to Carlisle. The ship hotel was now Noah's Ark, vainly trying to remember grander days. The Opel, of course, was gone, not even brown grass marking the spot of its dormancy. I walked around the field anyway. Opel GT. I also have a song about an Opel GT. Someday I should do a State College Live and just do my funny songs, which I have probably just enough to fill a half hour or 45 minutes of. And I got to close out with
Jim,
one
Jim,
final.
I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
but you said that one of those last poems was like your favorite one.
Mm-hmm.
And Cynthia said, thought it might be about your wife if it's your favorite one. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you were in trouble.
Okay, I swear. Look, my hands are in the air. The one I'm wrapping up with is for my wife. I am not scrolling on my screen at all where I have my poems. This is one for my wife.
All right, let's hear it. We'll finish off the poetry hour with one for your wife.
This is called Vespa, and this is for my wife, Cynthia. Vespa. It is a thing of beauty following behind on these 2-lane rural roads, watching you ride. We turn and twist through these roads that coil around and over the hills. Fog forming in the hollows, steam rising from the road and hanging in the air. I can almost taste the humidity. A brief rooster tail of spray as you ride through a puddle. I watch you leaning into the turns, seamless, fast, no hesitation. No tentative halo of brake lights. Just smooth, perfect lines through the turns, the static glow of your taillight shining on the damp blacktop as my visor begins to cloud up. I could not teach you this. You were born knowing. That is Vespa, and it is for my wife.
Round of applause, everybody in the chat. We have some great stuff. Judy said you speak to her heart. Mary saying, sure, you're going to end with this either way. But yeah,
it's true. Incidentally, just a really quick shout out. Judy was the very first person who ever read my poetry. So back in 1978, as a matter of fact.
Oh wow! Jared, were you born in 1978?
Maybe
his beard had started, but
right.
Amy says beautiful work. Kim's giving a round of applause in the chat. For those of you who are listening, if you do want to donate to the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest, there is scrolling along the bottom. The best way to do so is send it to Venmo at State College Live. And if you're like, oh, I love this hour, and I would love to give $5,000, that would be wonderful. But if you're like, hey, $5, that would be wonderful as well. Jared, do you have a shirt on, is my question.
Yeah, it's the same shirt. Golly.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Jared, Jim, do either of you have anything to plug while we finish up here?
I'd just say tomorrow morning, poems to start the day, centralpatheaterfest.com. We have a different reader and a different poem kicking off the day every morning, and a number of different readings scheduled throughout the weekend. So check out the full schedule, centralpatheater.com, and look for Virtual Fest.
Well, Jim, actually, there's something I forgot to mention to you. You were a judge for State College Live, our first songwriting competition.
Oh, that was a hoot. Yes, I was.
So we did a 24-hour songwriting competition, and we're doing another one next weekend. There's going to be an announcement on Sunday on this page, State College Live, Sunday at 2 p.m. There's going to be an announcement. Jason and I are going to announce the rules for next weekend's 24-hour songwriting competition. So if any of you poets out there want to start writing some songs, or if you're a songwriter like Jim and you want to participate, make sure you tune in, or at least check out State College Live on Sunday afternoon for the video, because there's going to be some really cool things you have to do throughout the week to be part of the second 24-hour songwriting competition. So it'll be super fun. Jared, do you have anything to say?
Thanks. This is great.
Well, welcome. So everyone, thank you so much. In the chat, Margaret says it's beautiful. Marjorie gives us some thumbs up and hands up. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And make sure you check out all the other events on the Central PA Theater and Dance Fest. Goodbye.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, James.